myself. Normally I'm hosting and I have a panelist with me. So I'm doing it all by myself today, so please bear with me. So those that don't know me, I'm Steve White. I'm Managing Director at Red Sea. Red Sea are a integrated agency based in Manchester, or they were, old world. But now we're based in Salford Keys. Email marketing, we have email marketing clients and have done. We've worked with Manchester City Football Club, Eurostar, Jessups, Swinton Insurance, Bupa Healthcare, and currently work with Dulux, Dulux Retail, Dulux Trade, Dulux Decorator Centre. We have one more session, one more virtual midweek masterclass. That's next week. That's Andy Partridge, our head of digital, who will be delivering a session on technical SEO. I've seen that session several times. It's a really good session. So if you do have any sort of influence over SEO, I would advise you attend. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to crack on. There will be an opportunity at the end for questions and answers. I'll hopefully aim for about 15 minutes at the end to enable any questions to be answered. However, I will be sending you all my email address. If you do have any more detailed questions that you want to take offline, I'll be more than happy to answer them in due course. Let me just share my screen. Okay, well, I hope that's working. So yes, again, welcome to the virtual midweek masterclass, the 3 pillars of a successful email strategy. Obviously, email strategy is quite a broad subject, and I think we have around 30 participants today, delegates, attendees, and obviously you're all from different sectors, different types of businesses. We'll have B2B, B2C audiences here, people from travel, leisure, retail, e-commerce. So I have taken a relatively broad brush and tackled the subject of email strategy here. The starting point, in my view, with any successful email marketing strategy is you need to understand, or you need to establish, what does success look like for you? What is your overall aim? What are you looking to achieve? I think you can only really understand what your email strategy should look like unless you know what you're actually looking to achieve and what success looks like. But what is consistent, probably amongst all of you guys, is you're all looking to get more of something. You know, whether or not you're in B2B, you're looking for potentially more leads. You're looking for lead generation. If you're in the travel sector, you're looking for more bookings. E-commerce, retail, you're looking for more sales. B2B again, or nowadays content's such a big thing. You're looking for content generation. You're looking for downloads of your content, your white papers, your webinars, so you can then follow that up with subsequent email marketing communications. If you're in the insurance sector, you're looking for more quotes. Engagement may well be your ultimate aim. When I used to work for Manchester City Football Club, that was fundamentally what we were there to achieve. They weren't really interested with the email program generating retail sales in terms of selling kits, selling shirts, or indeed selling tickets. What our overarching objective was for Manchester City Football Club was to increase their engagement level. So we were basically tasked with ensuring that a good proportion of their base were constantly and frequently engaged with the email program. Okay, so as I mentioned, obviously from the title of this presentation, in my view, there are 3 pillars that make up a successful email strategy. The when, email frequency; the what, content; the who, not the band, obviously; the who, segmentation. So I'm going to talk about each of those pillars one by one, and obviously at the end, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so the first subject is the when, email frequency. And this is a topic that comes up a lot in my job. So I work with a lot of clients, a lot of email clients, and the subject of email frequency is one that I need to talk about and address quite often. Again, being an integrated agency, I work across all channels, and email seems to be the only channel where this subject comes up. I'm often in conversations where clients are concerned about sending too much email. I worry about bombarding our customers with email. Personally speaking, from my own personal viewpoint, I think we over worry about email frequency. You know, for example, does this fella, you know, the annoying Go Compare guy, does he worry that people might be seeing his TV commercial too much? Of course not. The Barclaycard, you know, Barclaycard's marketing department worry that they may be bombarding their prospect base with too much direct mail. I doubt it very much. So why do we as email marketeers worry so much about email frequency? It's always something that I struggle with, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. We need to remember that your email base has subscribed to your email program. They have asked you as a business to send them emails to keep them updated with new products, new features, new services. So my view is to push email frequency to its limit. So keep calm and push email frequency to the limit. And I'm not suggesting for one moment that you just, in a blasé fashion, just continually send emails out. Yes, you need to monitor your open rates constantly, your click-through rates, and obviously your unsubscribe rates. But my view, our view as an agency, is to push it to the limit and see what works for you as a business. Ultimately, email and marketing is a numbers game. The more messages you send out, in theory, the more opens that you will get, the more clicks, and the more visits to your website you will get. Then ultimately, hopefully, more sales you will generate. You need to find the balancing act between, you know, the positive KPIs and the negative KPIs. But don't worry too much about it, and don't be scared about sending too much. Find your breaking point. Find the point where you're not comfortable with the unsubscribe rate. I hope that makes sense. And as I mentioned, if you have any questions about email frequency, please do ask them at the end. And the other thing about email frequency is, you know, by sending an email out, it has a positive impact on other channels. So when you send an email out, you are likely to get more PPC clicks on branded. You are likely to see more affiliate sales come through. You know, if you have a store presence, like we worked with Jessup's, for example, we would see a rise in footfall. And also, you know, you potentially would see more direct web visits as well by sending an email out. So it's not just your email KPIs that you need to bear in mind. This is interesting. This is a graph, well, a piece of research conducted by a fellow email marketing agency. And basically what they discovered was the blue line there are people that were sent an email, but didn't open that email, okay? And the orange line are members of their base that simply weren't sent an email. So as you can see, people that were sent an email but didn't open still generated more revenue for the business than those people that weren't sent an email at all. So, you know, email marketing isn't often referred to as being potentially a brand channel. But I do think email marketing, and you know, the research supports that view, that email marketing can be a channel that supports brand awareness and keeps your brand front of mind, even if your email isn't necessarily opened or engaged with. Just by seeing the brand name in the inbox, you know, with an appealing subject line, you know, can generate, as you can see here, good levels of income and revenue. Another thing that I'm often asked about, not necessarily about email frequency, but what day should you send your email? And you know, if you Google it like I did last night, you will find the answer to an extent. So according to Campaign Monitor, Thursday is the best day for open rates. Okay, so by definition, more people will open your emails if you send them out on a Thursday. Tuesday is the best day for click-through rates, but Campaign Monitor also say that you should be avoiding the weekend. Word of caution, take that information with a pinch of salt, okay, a pinch of salt. And I'll explain why in a moment. What time should you send your email? Again, according to Omnisend, 8 AM is the best time for open rates. 5 PM is the best time for click-through rates. However, another company, another business in the email marketing sector actually says 1 PM is the best time to send promotional emails. So again, take this information with a little bit of a pinch of salt. I think ultimately what you need to find is find the formula that works for you as a business. If your business is made up, or your database, your email database is made up of ROBs, or Robbies, should I say, 24-year-old students, they will have a very different lifestyle and maybe a very different relationship with email as Lou, the HR director, or Edward, the 68-year-old retired teacher. So you need to find the balance and the formula that works for you as a business. What I love about email marketing, or one of the many things I love about email marketing, is the ease in which you can implement robust testing. So it's not a difficult thing to test, whether or not Tuesday is the best day in which to send an email. Or you may even find a Friday works best for you. If you're in the B2B sector, maybe your critical point to send an email out would be when people are maybe approaching the end of the working day, maybe around 4 o'clock of an afternoon, where, maybe not on a Monday, like me, my email, my inbox is absolutely cluttered with crap. I just want to delete everything and just start the week afresh. So maybe the weekend isn't the best time to contact me via email, and other people that are sort of in my sort of sector. But that might be absolutely the right time to contact Robbie, for example. So find the formula that works for you. The what? Content. During our, we do a lot of masterclasses, and we do have a significantly larger section in our email marketing masterclass where we cover content in a much more elaborate and concise way. We talk about it quite a lot in those masterclasses. But what I've tried to do is just kind of get across our ethos when it comes to email marketing content. A few years back, we worked with Jessop's, the camera retailer, and they asked us to start working with them because they were having some significant issues with their open rate and click-through rate, ultimately their engagement levels. And what you can see there is fundamentally what their email program looked like. Obviously, I'm exaggerating to an extent, but all they used to do was send out sale, 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 sale emails, one after the other, day after day. That's all they would ever send. And we kind of looked at this and thought, okay, that's fine. Yeah, they're after the sales. But ultimately, if I'm a camera enthusiast, I'm not necessarily in the market for a camera every day, every week. In actual fact, I'm probably not in the market for a camera that often. I'm not in the market necessarily for any photo products on a daily, weekly basis. So ultimately, what we introduced for Jessop's, or what we refer to as a rich and varied inbox. So that's sending your email base a whole variety of different types of emails. So we would send them a newsletter, still maintain a steady flow of offer-driven emails, absolutely. Sales, product information, event-driven emails, value-added content, hints and tips, etc. So in the end, our email program looked a little bit like this. So this was a week in April 2018, maybe. So on the left-hand side there, you will see an email that we sent out, which was a April Fool's themed email, where we introduced the revolutionary Jessup ScentCam 1DS. This camera was very technically advanced. It enabled you to capture the smell of what you were taking a photo of. Obviously, an April Fool's campaign. That was followed a couple of days later with an offer, 50 free prints. And then later on in the week, we would send our base a newsletter full of advice, value added, product reviews, competitions. So as you can see, just with that example of 3 emails, they're all very, very different, all looking to achieve something a little bit different to the other. But ultimately, what it's trying to do is increase the frequency of how engaged your audience is, because ultimately, I'm not always going to be in the market for a camera or indeed printing photos, but I would be in the market for interesting information around my, an area of passion, such as photography. On occasions, this is quite a difficult thing to convince businesses it's the right policy, the right approach, the right way forward. Rubbish. People don't buy content, they buy product. I've been in conversations where I've had this pushback. I actually had it at Jessup's, in actual fact, a hard-nosed retail business. It took a lot of convincing, a lot of testing. But we convinced them in the end, and another business, just to kind of bring this to life, when we worked with Manchester City Football Club, we had different types of emails. We had content-driven emails, like the one on my left-hand side, which is their newsletter, the blueprint. And then on the right-hand side, a soulless email looking at pushing the Champions League semi-final clothing range. As you will see in the bottom right-hand corner of the newsletter, is a very similar pod to what the soulless email looked like. And what we actually found was the soulless pod, the newsletter pod on the left-hand side, that actually generated 36% more revenue than the soulless email did in terms of the retail email. So for me, that tells me that people are interested in other content other than just great offers and sales content, etc. So just something to bear in mind. Okay, so the who, segmentation. So, I'm sure most of you guys, if not all of you, you're all marketeers. You all are familiar with the 3 dimensions of relevance. This is what we're all striving to achieve. Because ultimately, by sending the right message to the right audience at the right time, you'll be seeing your email program perform at its optimum. This is kind of what you want to get to. I'm going to talk about automated campaigns a little bit later on. But a word of caution. You need to be mindful that sometimes you basically need to make sure that the balance of the reward that you get from segmentation is actually greater than the effort that you need to put in. And what I mean by that is segmentation does cost money. It takes time, it takes resource. Quite often you will have to create multiple versions of the email. On occasion it might just be copy, but quite often it's going to be imagery and content. And that does cost money, it's time sensitive, it uses resource in terms of time, etc. So this is a good example, something that we did for Manchester City Football Club. This was the welcome programme that we worked with them on. And we had our reservations at the time, I'll be completely honest with you. This ended up being around 40 emails. We segmented the base in lots of different ways. We had adults versus under 16s. We had members versus non-members. We had UK versus global fans. Obviously, Man City have fans all over the world. So it became a very complicated campaign. From my perspective, fantastic. We made lots of money on this. But from the client's perspective, I'm not convinced it was the right use of their money, because ultimately what happened, and it would happen for many industries, is we had to update this template, almost on a weekly, monthly basis, because as soon as Man City were to sell a player, we had to update maybe 40 email templates. If some piece of information became no longer right, we had to update the template. So it became a very costly affair. And what we ended up doing is shrinking this welcome program and really trimming a lot of the fat, and making it a much more streamlined process. And what we actually found, I think we ended up having maybe 6 emails. And we saw no loss in revenue, no loss in engagement. But what actually happened was the client ended up spending a lot less money on continually updating that template. So just be mindful when it comes to segmentation. But obviously, as a marketeer, I'm a huge fan of email segmentation. And as I'm sure you're aware, there are lots of different ways in which to segment your base. Whether or not they're a customer or whether or not they're a prospect. You could argue, well, not argue, it's a fact. They would require different types of messages. So you wouldn't just send out a blanket email to both a customer and a prospect. Age, it may be appropriate to segment your base by age. If you work in the travel sector, for argument's sake, maybe sending a email around Magaluf to a segment of 65 plus may not be as relevant as it would be maybe the younger audience. Web behavior is another way in which to segment your base, whether or not they're male or female. If you're in retail or e-commerce, one of the worst things that you can get is get an email from a business that actually leads with a product that is clearly more associated with a female audience than a male audience. Location is another great way in which to segment your base. If you happen to be opening a retail store in Wickham, you don't want to be sending that email to your whole email base, because it's completely irrelevant if I happen to be living in Manchester. So you want to then segment your base and actually work out what would be the postcode area that would make that email relevant to them. Product is another way in which potentially to segment your base. You could argue, if you're in e-commerce, if you're Very, for argument's sake, or Littlewoods, whatever you want to be, and your this particular customer only buys back of book, furniture, electricals from you. Maybe it's not relevant then to send them onto book, fashion-orientated emails. Maybe you should just stick with back of book. Email engagement levels. I think that's a really important one. If you have a proportion of your base that aren't engaging with your emails, maybe you need to think about sending them a different type of email to the rest of the base. The financial status of your base, again, that is a great way of segmenting your base, depending on what sector you have to be operating in. So there's lots of different ways in which to segment your base. So this is another way in which we segment. We kind of this is something that we've been doing recently with a number of our clients. So we actually segment our base by how they interact with our emails, which is quite an interesting way of going about it. So for argument's sake, for Swinton, if we were to send a newsletter out to Swinton Insurance, who sell lots of different products, car insurance, caravan insurance, bike insurance, and we were to find maybe 15% of the clickers clicked on van insurance, that's a good indication that that particular person or segment are interested in van insurance. So we would then send that proportion of the base a solus email solely about van insurance. But also what's interesting now is, with programmatic mail, you can actually link your offline output with your email output. So again, within 24 to 48 hours, if you were able to capture those people that have clicked on van insurance and haven't gone then on to make a purchase or gone through a policy, you can send that person within 24 to 48 hours a dedicated letter on the subject of van insurance. It's quite a powerful way of going about automated activity. So, okay, just some other thoughts around email strategy. And one of the great things about email marketing is testing. Like all digital channels, it's very easy to test in most circumstances. So these are what I believe to be the golden rules to email testing. I would say never ever send an email without testing. Testing something. Some of you may have attended my colleague Stuart Clark's copywriting for email session a few weeks back. There's a white paper on our website about great ways to test subject lines and calls to action. So we always encourage our clients to test something. So you're making a learning every time you're sending out an email. Don't try and test too much. Sometimes there's because it's relatively easy to test, you can sometimes fall in the trap of testing imagery, copy, navigation, time of send. It becomes too complicated. At the end, you're not completely sure what actually has influenced the positive or indeed negative result. So only test one thing at a time. And always question the value of the test. Just by doing a test, how is that going to influence the rest of the program moving forward? So yeah, for example, test capitalization in the subject header versus non-capitalization, but don't just test a subject line versus another, because ultimately if that subject line wins and it's just text versus another text-driven subject line, what are you actually learning? So make sure that you actually will get something of insight, something insightful out of that is actionable moving forward. And implement a robust testing schedule. I'm a big believer of not just doing ad hoc tests. Work out what your main challenge is at this moment in time. So it may well be you've got a decreasing or declining open rate. So therefore you should be putting all your effort into improving that through subject header testing. But maybe your open rates are fantastic, and actually it's your click-through rate that you potentially think may not be optimized. So therefore, it should actually be content and imagery that you should be testing. But map it out. Work out what emails are going out and what you should test over that period. Okay, I'm going to take a quick drink. Bear with me. How are we doing for time? Okay, so it's about 25 to 12. Okay, so automated programs, absolutely crucial to an email program nowadays. The days of just blasting emails out are still very much here, don't get me wrong, but a good email program is a good healthy mix of blast emails and also automated programs. So these would be kind of my must do. If I was to recommend to any client what 3 automated programs should they do, ultimately they'll be these 3. And I'll explain why. I think actually one of my colleagues from the Dulux Decorator Centre are actually on the call, so I hope you don't mind me using this as an example. But this is an example of a welcome program. So this is fundamentally someone who has just become a customer. It's very important to send them a communication that that welcomes them to the brand. That kind of talks about the brand, what the brand stands for, what are the key USPs, what are you going to get from the email program, and potentially even throwing an offer to kind of generate that second order. It's really important because this person has shown a positive attitude towards you as a brand. They purchase something, they subscribe to your email program. You need to reward them with a thank you and a welcome message. The second email that I'm a massive fan of are abandoned basket emails. I think I read a stat the other day that 70% of people when buying online do happen to abandon the basket. And it's important to note, just because someone abandons the basket doesn't necessarily mean that they're no longer interested in your product. They could just be distracted. The missus might phone. your son might have asked for his tea. Do you know what I mean? You may have just been distracted from what you're actually doing. Yes, you may have had second thoughts, but it's fine, because this email, tackles that issue straight away. By sending an abandoned basket email out. So the one on the right was one that we did for Jessop's. And there are crucial things that you need to do with any abandoned, or any successful abandoned basket, in my view, is obviously reference the product that you've abandoned. I think that's really, really important. Because you may just have forgotten. You may just have forgotten that you've done that, and this type of email has such a fantastic open rate, click-through rate, and it rescues a high proportion of sales. So if you're in this, if the sector that you're in is relevant for an abandoned basket email, please implement it tomorrow. Test the use of an offer, but be careful. What you don't want to do is train your audience, whereby people who abandon their basket simply to get an offer at 10% off, 15% off. Just be careful and mindful of that. Give reassurance. If someone's potentially abandoned their basket, abandoned their cart, there may be a reason. Maybe they weren't sure about something. Maybe they weren't sure about you as a brand. So maybe as part of that abandoned basket email, give them some reassurances. Give them the opportunity of calling you to ask some questions. For this, on the Jessop's example there, that's not a cheap camera. It's 250 quid. If I've got any second doubts, give me the opportunity to call you and ask a question about that camera. This is another email that I like. It's a browser abandonment email. This is a freebie. So it's very similar to an abandoned basket email, but this is basically where you've captured that a person's logged in into your website, and they've visited a particular area of the website, but they've not gone on to purchase. So a little bit big brothery. You send them an email about that particular product category, that particular service. And again, it's a great email to generate great open rates, click-through rates, and indeed conversions. These are one of my favorite types of emails, and they're really, really important. So re-engagement emails. These are becoming more and more important, and the reason being is it's now very much frowned upon by email clients if you're sending emails to a high proportion of your base that happen to be non-engaged with the email program. So for argument's sake, if you've got 40% of your email program haven't opened an email from you in 6 months, that's a dangerous position to be in, because ultimately there'll become a point where you get blacklisted. Your emails will start going into junk because you're not following good standard practice. So ultimately there becomes a time that you need to decide when it becomes a point where you no longer should be sending emails to that non-engaged audience. You'll all have your different views, but you need to make a decision. Okay, after 6 months, 3 months, they've not opened an email, we send them a re-engagement email or a series of emails asking them to re-engage with you, unless, and if they don't, they will then leave the email program, because fundamentally it's dangerous for you as an email sender to continue sending emails. It's a great chance to be bold, to be different, and to have fun, because ultimately what you're not looking to do, by definition, the people that receive this email, they haven't been opening your previous emails for whatever reason, so you don't want to be sending them something that looks and feels very similar to your previous emails, because ultimately they're not going to get opened again. So you want to send them something a bit different. You want to send them something a bit fun. The subject line is absolutely crucial, because ultimately all you're looking to achieve is an open. And you're looking to get an open, therefore you know that that email address is still valid and that person is still there. So for example, when we worked at Man City Football Club, the subject header that we had when we emailed the non-engaged Man City database was "Have you turned red?" Making reference to "Have you turned into a Manchester United fan?" That had a great open rate and a really successful reintroduction into the program for that proportion of the base. So a brief summary. So what does success look like? You need to establish what success looks like before mapping out any successful email strategy. Push the frequency as hard as you dare. Don't over worry about email frequency. Create a rich and varied inbox. Be relevant and timely to the right audience. Test absolutely everything. Don't send an email out without testing something. And create robust, automated email programs. Okay, thank you very much. I hope that was enjoyable. I'm glad to see I've still got all of my attendees. I didn't actually see anyone was leaving then, so that was a relief to see I've still got 29 people there. Okay, so I'm going to open the floor up for some questions now. So let me just see if I've got any questions. There are no questions as of yet. Okay, so let me just say a couple of things before we close if no questions come through. So, as I mentioned, next week we have a technical SEO virtual midweek masterclass delivered by Andy Partridge. Really good session around how to get your website set up in order to implement a successful SEO strategy. A really good session. One thing I will say, as all the 29 delegates that are here today, what we are offering is a free email marketing audit. So if you did want me to take a closer look at your email program, if you did have a particular challenge or something that you were worried about, i.e., your open rates may be on decline or your click-through rates may be struggling, I'd be more than happy to take a look at your email program and maybe give you some recommendations as to how to improve that particular KPI. Obviously, no obligation, but yeah, absolutely more than happy to do that for you. I will send an email on the back of this session detailing exactly that. I will also send a link to today's presentation where you can potentially share it with other colleagues if you think it may well be valuable. Oh, I'm pleased to say I have a question. Not ready yet. Here we go. This is from my good friend, Beverly Whitehead, colleague and client over at GeoXtag Creator Centre. When you say push to the limit on email send, does that mean 1 per day or more? People do send an email a day. That does happen. So from my perspective, if they are doing it, it must work for them. What I would say is you need to find what is the right balance for you as a business and what's right for you from a KPIs perspective. If you start pushing your frequency and you do start seeing your unsubscribe rate, pull back a bit. I think the main point I'm trying to make really is don't over worry about it before you started seeing detrimental results. I often see clients over worry about it, and then by doing that, they're then not pushing the email program to its full potential because they're pulling away. I hope that's helpful, Bev. Bev's got another question. Thank you, Bev. Would you recommend just to use email or a mix of DM and email? 100%. We're massive advocates of doing exactly that. I had an example actually in the presentation there where I'm actually sending direct mail on the back of how someone has engaged with an email. But yes, we quite often will, for a financial services client, for example, we will often send a direct mail piece as almost the launch activity, but then follow that up with a series of email communications. Bottom line is direct mail is quite an expensive medium, and email marketing isn't as expensive. So quite often it's cost effective to follow up direct mail activity with email. Yeah, thank you for the question, Bev. Yeah, we often will marry our DM and email activity. I hope that answers that question. Couple more questions. To encourage, this is from Megan, to encourage more email sign-ups, would you recommend offering a discount when you sign up? Concerned about filling our email database with those wanting the one-off discount and who have just popped into the site rather than our target audience. Good question. And again, I think it's something that's worth testing, Meg, or Megan, should I say. In our past, we have incentivized email sign up for certain clients and not others. Again, I think it depends on your business and the products and services that you operate in. I think that is a good point. I think there is always a risk that you may just be signing people up because of that discount. But at the same time, I think you need to work out what's the best thing to, what's the word I'm looking for? What are you ultimately looking to achieve? What's the worst case scenario? By bringing people into the database, by introducing an offer, yes, you're probably likely to bring more people in, but then you are ultimately going to be given a greater catchment area, more people to actually then market to. So it's kind of a rock and a hard place, really, but it's definitely worthwhile testing, in my view. We've had great results with regards to email sign-ups by introducing a 10% off offer. Quite often something that we would incentivize people with maybe a piece of content. But yeah, absolutely. We really struggle to get new subscribers, so have been recommended to use purchase lists. Would you see this as a no-go? How else would you prompt people to subscribe other than existing customers? I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of bringing in purchase lists. It's quite a dangerous position to be in. If you were to do it, what you do need to do is throttle. And that basically means you need to, if you were to buy a database of 100,000 people, for argument's sake, you would need to break that database up into very bite-sized chunks to test the quality of that data. So maybe in 5,000 pots. But I'm not a big fan, if I'm being perfect. I've never had a great degree of success by purchasing data. You will see, pretty low open rates by buying in data. I'm a much bigger fan of growing from within. Yes, there are lots of ways in which to grow your own base. I think there are ways in which to do that. If you have good content, potentially make that content gated. So therefore, they have to give you an email address in which to download that piece of content. Obviously, they then need to sign up to your email program, but it's giving you a better opportunity. On your email, on your web page, on your homepage, if you are you giving the functionality to allow people to subscribe to your email program? If not, bring it onto the website. If you do have it, think about where it happens to be. I see a lot of clients, a lot of businesses, that this is a big thing for them. They want to grow their base, but then they have the email subscribe box right at the bottom of the homepage. Experiment with bringing it further up above the fold. Competitions, again, is a great way of which to grow your email base. Maybe introduce a weekly competition on a Friday where people have to do something and give you the sign up for your marketing communication. So there are many ways in which you could potentially do that. Got another question here from Dawn. How would you encourage your own customers to opt into marketing? What are the key triggers to improve your permissions and post GDPR? What is an average good opt-in rate for the customer base? That's a tough one. How would you encourage your customers to opt into marketing? Well, I think one of the things that you need to do is, in my view anyway, is to sell your email program via your homepage, via your other assets. Obviously, you've got other marketing channels. So one of the things that we do quite often, Dawn, is we talk about our email program on other channels. So, for example, on social media, we will often promote the quality of the email program via LinkedIn, if we happen to be in the B2B environment, or Facebook, or Twitter, or Instagram. We will talk about the email program and tell people why it would be good for you to sign up and give people the link in which to do so. So I think that's a quick win potentially there. I'm just conscious of a little bit of time, so I'm just going to quickly move on to the next question. We really struggle to get new subscribers. So have been recommended to use purchase lists. Also, that was the previous question. In terms of an average good opt-in rate for the customer base, again, it differs from sector to sector, from client to client, from email program to email program. I think, you know, we have subscription rates to, or permissions to our email programs of 60% plus. But, you know, I've also seen it as low as 20%. But I think there are, again, this is digitally, so there are ways in which to improve the mechanisms and the UX when it comes to subscription and getting people subscribed to your emails. One of the things that I tend to not do quite often is put too many obstacles in front of someone at the point of email subscription. So you're not looking to actually obtain too much data at that initial point. You know, once you've got them into your email channel, you know, your email program, you could then look to improve their, you know, their permissions and the quality of their preferences during the course of their relationship with you via the email program. Okay, I think I'll just quickly scroll up. I think that's all of my questions. So thank you very much for the questions. I do appreciate that. As I mentioned, if you do have any further questions, I will be more than happy to take them offline. I will send you an email with the link through to this presentation with my email address and mobile number. So if you have any questions that you want to chat to in a little bit more detail, please do not hesitate to contact me. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed today's session. I thoroughly did. So yeah, thank you very much and take care.